We are phone booth fighting minus Frank Mir. I'll explain that here in a second. Joined by the Boxmasters at Red Rock Casino, where they're playing a sold-out show tonight. Our good friends, the Boxmasters, getting reunited. Teddy's here to my left, JD, and Bud, who, of course, looks a whole lot like Billy Bob Thornton, but he hears that quite a bit. It's good to see you guys again.
Good to see you, Richard.
How are you? Congratulations on a sold-out show.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the capacity is only 35. So if we didn't sell it out, that'd be pretty bad.
Yeah, that's true. But, it's exciting because, I was thinking about this today when we were getting ready to do the interview. I don't know how many of these we've done over the years. I always appreciate you guys doing it with me. But, I remember the first time. In fact, I think the first time I interviewed you, Billy, was on the phone. It was a phoner, right. And you're promoting the Dallas show. And I was thinking, it's one thing when somebody who's known for acting wants to do an album or vice versa or whatever. And I knew you had a musical background, but here we are, God, is it 10 years later? I mean, I don't know how long it's been, but this is a full-time pursuit.
Wow, it's been... Well, the Boxmasters have been together 12 years.
Yeah.
And then I did 4 solo records before that. And then... And Teddy and I have been playing together almost 20 years.
Yep.
So it's...
I did play on private radio. That was the first one, private radio. I played on everything after that.
Yeah, that's right.
Played on everything after that.
There you go. Boy, that's a bad sign.
Hey, professionals.
That's a bad sign when the guy that sings backup vocals later on tonight, you got to point him toward the microphone. That's all right. No, but...
Let me tell you something.
Yeah, I get that guy sometimes, the guy who likes to gesture.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
The Pope with that thing. Yeah. The Boxmasters playing a sold-out show here tonight in Las Vegas, as I said, behind a new record in stereo. Now, had a chance to listen to the record a number of times. You guys have done it again. Quality effort. The first thing that comes to mind when I heard it was big harmonies. A really full vocal sound on this record, and a lot of tracks too. What was it?
19 songs.
Yeah, 19 songs. Very nice. Let's talk about that record because it's out. It's available now. First of all, I love the title, In Stereo. To a lot of people, they would think, well, that's something that's been around for a while. But the Boxmasters are purists. They're hesitant to embrace new technology, has been my experience with you, right? I mean, it was only a couple of records ago you guys quit putting out 78s, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, the whole idea behind the stereo is we wanted to have an album cover that reflected those days in the 60s, and they would always have these 60s versions. There were drawings of girls on the beach or whatever, And so we have 2 girls on the cover facing away, both holding a gift box, which was Ted's idea. And
what's in the box, Ted?
Masters.
The box was the same color as our logo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, have the box be the same color.
Holding us, yeah.
And so the In Stereo, reference with the 2 girls. And so the reason we wanted to call it In Stereo is because, since it is based so much on our influences from the 60s, in the 60s when you bought an album, it always had a little oval little thing up in the corner that would say In Stereo when stereo was newer, And it was kind of like bragging. It's like when you get a box of cereal and it says new improved, whatever.
It's like the motel
cornflakes.
It's like the motel that still advertises color TV.
Oh yeah, color TV, right? Exactly. Color TV, free ice. And so, and that's the idea behind it. Is really just instead of just having the little logo thing up there that says In Stereo. Yeah. Just go ahead and call the album In Stereo. And, that's the idea behind it. And then on the back, it's got our silhouettes, and that kind of thing. So it's a very 60s looking cover, and the music goes from kind of our influences from like the early 70s, and the record starts out there, as opposed to writing songs that and putting them in an order that would go from, say, 65 to 73. We started in 73. Yeah. and by the end of the record, you're in stuff that's more influenced by 65, 66, 67.
Yeah, that's real clear, and that seems like with the last couple of records, you guys have done a direction that you've been moving toward. Obviously, it's further in that direction. Is that by design, or has that just been where the writing's been headed?
No, we definitely, we did the one previously was called T-Surfing, and so this, up until we came up with the in stereo title, we just called T-Surfing 2. We always intended that it was the follow-up, companion to that record. So, we didn't really intend on getting this record together so quickly. I am a professional recording engineer, so, but.
They're just confused as to why I'm not recording this on reel-to-reel. They're looking at me like I'm an alien over here with this contraption.
But no, we did another record that we intended on putting out for this tour, and we were intending on putting it out with a label, and they all told us, everybody that we met with, that they couldn't get the record out in time, and do enough promotion for it. So we went, well, all right, we'll just do another 19-song record and get it out for the tour, and we'll just sell that on the road and promote that. So whoever puts out the next record will have plenty of time to do all their homework for it.
Well, and you know what? I think for as much as we all love musical nostalgia, that is one of the nice things about the current age we're in, is because you can do that. You can put it out yourself, and you want to put 19 songs on there, you can do that. You don't have to back time it and try to figure out if everything's going to fit on there or not. So I guess that is an upside for sure.
That's one of the lesser numbered records. We did like 22 before that.
Yeah. T-Surfing had a lot of songs.
Yeah. So we always make the joke that percentage-wise, you should be able to find a couple on there you like.
That's true. One of the songs I really like on this new record is called "Never Want to Leave California," and I like it for a couple of reasons. It's obviously an homage to the Golden State. It lists the pros and cons of living in California and being a Californian. And the first thing I noticed about it was the sort of the musical dichotomy in it, where when you're listing the negatives, it's a little more slower, it's a little more, and then it kicks in to more of an upbeat thing when you start listing the pros, right?
Absolutely. And then toward the end, we've got this outro that has.
Yes.
So our assistant over at A&M, Tate, we have him listing off some of the more interesting trivia about the state of California.
Yeah, that was funny. And then he mispronounces
Pomona.
Pomona, that's right.
He goes,
and he did that for real. He did that. That was
something
he actually did, and then we just went, well, that's how we have to end the song, because it was real. It's like he didn't screw it up, on purpose.
I like the fact, too, in the song that when you're listing all the pros and the cons, in the pros column is the Hells Angels.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah, Hells Angels and Beach Boys.
Right. Yeah. Now, you guys also have a track on there, Japanese Girl, that you've been performing live for a while. So that song's been around for quite a while, yeah?
We recorded that song in probably 2010 or so.
Probably before that. It was probably 2009 that we had it on a record that, some of the older stuff, we've kind of cannibalized for parts here and there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, it just felt like it fit this record, and it's been part of our live show for years. And so, people have asked where they can get that song and, a few others. So we just tried to make sure we kind of, put a few of those kind of things in this record while we had a chance.
There's a live track on there too. Speaking of playing, songs that you've been playing live for a long time, Emily, which is the last track on there, it's cool to hear that live track on there because it really does give a good, accurate representation of what a live Boxmaster show is like, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the song that we start our shows with, and we have for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And on the record, it's the last song because, I think when you're sequencing a record, you've only got one live song. You don't want to it would kind of interrupt the flow if you have a live song in the middle somewhere or a first. It's
sonically it's a lot different.
Yeah, it's a lot different. So put it at the end. It almost feels like a bonus track at the end, like that. You know. So, but yeah, that's a song that my brother actually wrote. My brother Jimmy, and years and years and years ago. And we've always started the show with that. And
we've been starting that since the solo days.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
When we used to tour for the Bob Thornton band.
Yeah.
That was the opening number.
It was a pure live track too, except that I detected that you might have enhanced the pyrotechnics on it. I couldn't really tell on that.
We do have a lot of explosions in our show, and it's hard to mic explosions because it really overloads the microphones.
They're not the ones that we bring on the truck.
Right.
If they're happening, something's going wrong.
Have you guys?
I just saw something really funny. I just have to point out. This is amazing. We use microphones like every day of our lives. It's our business, right?
Right.
I'm just watching Teddy. When Teddy talks, he's got the microphone right here. And then when he stops talking, he goes like this.
He used to do that. Do you remember the old? Have you ever watched Letterman when he had Larry Bud Melman?
Oh, of course.
And he would interview people, and he would say, "JD, you've got a show out tonight."
right, I know. Oh, he did it all the time.
Yeah, very funny. So, the new album in stereo. I'm sure you guys will be playing a lot of that tonight. How many more dates on the tour? I mean, we are syndicated, so there are people who are hearing this outside of the Las Vegas area that may still have an opportunity to go to theboxmasters.com and check on tour dates. You guys are actually just starting, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is we got another 40 or so shows left on this tour.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all over the place. We started in Napa, California, in Yountville, and then we played Bremerton, Washington, Salem, Oregon, and tonight in Vegas is the fourth show. And then we go back to L.A., San Diego, Tucson, going over to Roswell, New Mexico, which is interesting. And then we go down for 5 shows in Texas. We're doing a bunch down there at places that I'm sure you've haunted many times.
Many times. That's where I first sampled the Boxmasters a number of times there. Yeah, when I was still in Texas. Well, speaking of being everywhere, as the song says, JD texted me from Winnemucca. Yesterday.
That's right.
He's something about carrying his pack down a dusty road in Winnemucca. And I said, "What are you doing out there?" He said, "Well, we're parked here, and supposedly there's a lot of brothels around here, but I looked it up on Yelp, and they're not coming up." And I said, "Well, you can come to my brothel if you." I don't know if you know this, and I don't know if we were talking about an interview, but I do PR for a couple of the brothels outside of Las Vegas.
Right. Well, JD told me I didn't know.
Yeah, that's my quote-unquote legitimate job, right? So I said, "Yeah, you want to come out to my place? I'll show you around." In fact, it was at one of our places a couple of years ago that I found Lamar Odom overdosing. You remember that story?
I sure do.
Yeah, that was me.
You found him?
I did.
Wow.
You listen to that 911
That's
call.
amazing.
If you listen to that 911 call, you'll recognize that voice.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Other than calling 911, what does doing PR for a adult entertainment facility like that
not to make this all about me.
You're way more interesting than us.
What I do, the best way that I describe my job to that aspect of what I do is it's like creative writing. So what I do is I create these stunts to create publicity for the brothel. So 9 a.m. I take a look at what the day's headlines are, and by 5 p.m. I figured out a way to shoehorn the brothel's name somehow into the narrative to get it some press. But sometimes the press comes to you, and that was one wild Tuesday afternoon when all of a sudden a girl wearing high heels and nothing else came running into the office screaming because Lamar Odom was having a stroke. And I ran back there, and he was on his back, and I jumped up on the bed, and I kicked him over to his side, and when I did, he just expelled everywhere, like all kinds of horrible stuff came out. Goodness. And, he's a giant. He's like 300 pounds, and because he's almost 7 feet tall. And I had to sort of sit on him and balance him on his side so he didn't roll back over on his back. and get on the phone with 911 and then wait until the paramedics got there and everything.
Wow. You knew exactly what to do, man. I mean, that's something.
Well,
I
know,
I would have known. I wouldn't have known to turn someone on his side.
Yeah. Hey, listen, if you're going to be in a rock band, I'm a handy guy to have around with that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I had no idea that was, because I remember that was a big story.
Yeah.
You know, and all that. That's why I don't go to brothels.
Yeah, I just Kirk, our guitar player, he went and found a sign that was like a hand painted, plywood sign that said brothels on it. So he took a picture with that. But supposedly the main ones closed down because the owner passed away, and the wife didn't want to open them back up or something, and so there's not as much action up there in Winnemucca as there used to be.
Well, next time you're through, come on out to my place, because I told the girls when JD sent me that text, I said, hey, I got a buddy that's coming down maybe from Winnemucca, a couple of friends, and they were going to look their best. And then got the bad news that you guys had to head straight to Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'll tell you one thing I do. I'll tie this back to the music we all love in a special way. Is the girls like karaoke there, and so we have a karaoke machine, and then I was also at somebody brought an acoustic guitar in, so I took it upon myself to start strumming the Son of Hickory Holler's Tramp for all of them.
Wow!
And I don't know how many of them got it, but that song to me, and it's just really an opportunity for me to reference that song, but that song to me is one of my most favorite country songs. I would say that's underrated. It's not in that, he stopped loving her today status everybody talks about. Anybody got a song like that comes to the top of your mind that it's just, it's one of your go-tos, but, for some reason it just never, it doesn't get in that all-time conversation.
Now, you mean country song or just any song?
Yeah, give me any song. That's fine. Give me any song.
Well, I mean, there's so many like that are not the song from an album. But, I always liked Light Up or Leave Me Alone by Traffic.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty much.
Blank. I can't even.
Well, no, I know it's funny because I'll think of 30 the second you leave the room. But
tell me later.
Driving Wheel by Poco.
I mean,
I always just thought that song was great.
Yeah.
But that's not really what you think of when you think of Poco. As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't even think of Poco.
Yeah.
So everybody's going, Poco? Who the hell's Poco?
Yeah. Do you know years ago, back when I was still in the band, we played at Summerfest in Milwaukee, and Poco was on the bill. And Poco rolls up in this brand new, beautiful tour bus. And we all looked at each other like, man, Poco must be doing pretty well these days. What's going on? And you looked closer, and on the inside, it had the MC Hammer logo stitched all over the place, and he had just gone bankrupt. So there was that fire sale on all of his stuff, and I guess a lot of people benefited. Speaking of tales from the tour bus, all right. Now we got to get into a little bit of this because let me tell you, I like it that we're friends like this, because when I see something like Tales from the Tour Bus, I swear to you, my first thought, and Jennifer, my girlfriend, will verify this. As soon as I saw this, I said, I wonder if the Boxmasters have seen this. I have to find out. And I texted JD, and he goes, oh, my God, we watched them all 2 nights ago. Greatest thing ever.
It's become a religion.
Yeah.
And now
because he had seen them.
Paycheck won again. Let's watch the George Jones was on again.
Mike, if you don't know, Mike Judge, Beavis and Butthead, King of the Hill, he has got a new animated 8-episode season series called Tales from the Tour Bus. It's airing on Cinemax, but you can get them on iTunes and all the rest of that. It's genius. It's him narrating legendary tales of old country guys, George Jones, Waylon Jennings, Johnny Paycheck, and a lot of the people who were around him at the time verifying some of these old legendary stories. It's animated. It's funny. It's brilliant. I mean, tell me your take on it.
I got to tell you, I started watching it a couple of months ago, I guess. And I watched it with my wife, who's raised in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And has never seen any people like this in her lifetime. I'm the closest as she's gotten.
Yeah.
And so she was fascinated by it. And she said, my God, these people are crazy. I said, oh, you haven't seen half of it. You have no idea. And then they did one on Blaze Foley, who was one of the lesser-known guys, you know, who is from my hometown. He's from Malvern, Arkansas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, moved to Texas.
Right,
you know,
right. It was based in Austin, but from there originally. Okay.
But from my town. And there aren't a lot of famous folks from my town. Of course, Blaze never got to be real famous, but it's funny because all the episodes are so hilarious because of the craziness that went on.
Yeah.
The episode about Blaze is really poignant.
Yeah.
And kind of sad toward the end of it, you know. So I thought that was a great thing for the series, that not everything is just sort of like, let's have fun talking about how nuts these guys were. It's all of a sudden, here's one who was nuts, but nuts.
Yeah, nuts,
you know
nuts, and tragic, because with the, you know, when, you know, success is such a cure-all for a lot of things, and not ultimately if it does you in, but, you know, some of those guys had so much success that the story, it was easier to laugh at the stories because, you know, they were afforded a nice life that came along with it. I was, you know, there were so many things that came to my mind when I was, first of all, like the George Jones lawnmower story where he drove the lawnmower to the liquor store. Now, I'd heard that story for years. In fact, Billy, you told me that George had told you that was a true story.
Yes.
Yeah. And you were the only person up until this series that had ever actually verified that for me, because some of these can be tall tales,
sure.
But it was the story when Tammy didn't want him to drive to the liquor store, and she hid all the car keys, and he drove the John Deere lawnmower. But that series, though, the accents that it puts on it, like when they're talking to the Addams brothers and all those guys, and somebody points out he didn't even take the blade off of the John Deere mower, so it's kicking
rocks
over.
are going everywhere. Yeah,
yeah,
it was something else. I mean, one of my favorite things about George, and I knew him, and I'm trying to think if I don't know any of those guys that they did one on.
Yeah.
I think I knew all of them except Blaze Foley, who was the one from my hometown. But they're pretty amazing cats, you know, every one of them in their own way. And but they were the thing about George that really impressed me about the episode about him, and this is something that I never saw him do, but had heard the stories, was when he had the split personality.
Oh yeah,
and he
the duck.
Yeah, he was the duck, and he was the old man.
Right.
And the old man got pissed off at the duck and kicked him off the bus, but then started feeling bad about it because that was his best friend. The duck was the old man's best friend, so he made the bus turn around and go pick the duck back up. Right. And of course, they were all him. You know, it was I loved that.
And by the way, sometimes they were letting that guy drive.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that was the other thing too.
Sure.
Is some of these arguments and shootings and stuff like that were happening behind the wheel at 70 miles an hour. That was, and this is, you know, and the genius of Mike Judge. And if you knew him, I knew him when I was a kid because he's from Dallas, and he was a bass player in a blues band called Anson and the Rockets. Mm-hmm. And that's how I knew him originally. And then he started with Beavis and Butthead. And I remember hearing about Beavis and Butthead because he was like, oh, yeah, I sold this little show to MTV. You know, maybe it'll turn into something. And then he takes off from there. But if you watch Beavis and Butthead, my favorite part of those cartoons was when they would watch the videos, because you could tell he had a really good base of music knowledge to be able to make some of those jokes. Mm-hmm. And now he's able to do some of it in the country vein. And so, you know, he doesn't get in the way of the story, but I was telling JD on text the other day that I love the lines like where he's about halfway through the series. I think it was a Billy Joe Shaver episode where he said, you know, our next artist is a legendary country songwriter who sold, you know, responsible for millions of records and, like a lot of other guys on this show so far, shot a guy.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, see, the great thing about having Mike, him making himself the host, is this stuff wouldn't be as effective if you got like a razzmatazz guy to be the host. The fact that Mike is so deadpan is what makes it fun. When he says, and then Billy Joe shot a guy in the face, it's almost like listening to Hank Hill narrate it, which makes it even funnier, and Mike's just perfectly still there. I mean, and the idea also that he had to animate it, with real people. I don't know how they do that. I know that there's a process by where they just film it as like filming us, but then they do something where we look animated. And I think that was genius, But anybody who hasn't seen it has got to watch that.
Yeah, it was genius. And then the you were telling me before we got started, you ran sound for Johnny Paycheck a little bit.
Years ago, when I worked with for a couple of different sound companies, and the smaller sound company I worked for did a couple of shows with Johnny Paycheck. Yeah, and he was. The good news was when we worked with him, he didn't fire a weapon at us. He actually liked us, and he was very, very nice to me. He was hopped up, he was really higher than a kite when we worked with him, and very talkative, and he wasn't a big guy; he was a little guy, and he was just a mile a minute, and I was just some kid that he didn't have to talk to, but he did, and he was very, very nice to me. So I wasn't privy to any of the shootouts or any of that stuff, but he was great. I actually liked him. He was kind of funny, I thought. One of the things I loved on Mike's show on the Johnny Paycheck episode
I know what you're going to say.
Was when everybody would say when he was said and had an uncanny resemblance to Charles Manson, which was amazing.
He really did, though.
There's no doubt about it.
I mean, he really did. No. Johnny Paycheck factors into a weird childhood memory of mine because my grandpa growing up, I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house, and my grandpa ran a liquor store. And at Saturday nights, he would close the store, and he'd come in. It was always like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock by the time he gets home. I was a little kid, so I get to stay up late to see my grandpa and everything. And he came in one night, and I remember it because it was the first time I had ever really heard him cuss. And he came in, and he was mad because he was shorthanded all day because one of the cashiers at the liquor store the night before had gone out to Billy Bob's Texas and run off with Johnny Paycheck. And she just got on the tour bus and went to wherever the next stop was, and no call, no showed for work. And I remember him coming in, and I remember him saying, I'm here in the kitchen, and he's raising a ruckus, and I just hear goddamn Johnny Paycheck. And I remember my grandmother being mad because he had taken the Lord's name in vain, and I didn't even know what that was about. But
that's hilarious.
I'm sure that happened a number of times with
doubt.
Johnny. So, hey, let me ask you real quick too before we wrap up about Goliath, because that's in its second season on Amazon, which is a great show. If you got Amazon Prime, you can watch that. And I liked it from the get-go because I'm interested in any lawyer that offices out of a motel.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's you.
Yeah. It's, I think I might even like motels for offices better than just some corporate building.
Yeah.
If I were to be a lawyer, I might. If you could get any work, but... that's the character's not really far from me, to tell you the truth. I'm just kind of playing myself in it, really. If I were a lawyer in L.A., I'd probably be about like that guy.
Yeah. I just was overhearing a conversation when we were getting everything set up, but total agreement with this because everybody is gravitating so much towards binge watching things and having them available on demand, and that does seem to be a really nice component of again what modern technology affords us, that you can just put a whole set. Well, we just got done talking about it. Tales from the Tour Bus. You can sit up all night and watch them.
We did,
no doubt.
Yeah. And I also think too, watching those, it's a way to be able to invest a little more in a character or a storyline, because after I've spent 8 hours with you, or whatever that period of time is, kind of a crash course, then sometimes it sticks with you more, I think.
I totally agree, because if you're watching, say, like a network show that comes on Sunday night or whatever it is, and you don't see it again until the next Sunday, and they have to do that stupid sort of last week on Hanson or whatever the show is, It's like they recap a thing or two, or you have to kind of remember what it was before. And I think it's like anything. It kind of takes the wind out of its sails a little bit by waiting. And this way you're watching, however you watch it. If you watch 3 episodes at a time or half of it or the whole thing, it's more like you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
And that's really what they're doing on Amazon and places like that now, HBO, whatever it is they're making, 8-hour independent films.
Mm-hmm.
And because the independent film business is almost non-existent now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's where it is now. It's on those places.
I guess we like going back and forth because I love that, and at the same time, speaking of motels, we'd stayed in this kind of boutique motel in L.A. a couple of months ago, and they had this television. It was this totally retro television channel called MeTV.
Oh yeah,
and I've got MeTV.
You guys have it.
Yeah,
okay.
we watch it.
Yeah, and it airs like all these old movies, old TV dramas, sitcoms, whatever. And we had it on the hotel for a couple of nights straight, and we found out it's here in Las Vegas. I went out and bought rabbit ears because I couldn't get it otherwise.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's how I watch it with the rabbit ears.
Yeah, so
that's fantastic.
4.2.
Yeah, so we got our Amazon Fire Stick and everything for the for Goliath and that kind of stuff, and then we flip over to the rabbit ears whenever MeTV comes on.
That's so cool.
There's another station called Cozy TV.
Oh yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah.
Same thing, but Cozy TV.
Cozy
TV.
I was trying to help him out.
Cozy TV runs bad sci-fi movies.
Oh yeah,
the crappy ones.
It's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
the really crappy ones.
Yeah.
You can actually take your pants off on
this.
this
You can't
stuff.
stop watching them.
Yeah.
You can't stop. They're horrible. You go, why did I just spend an hour and a half watching that? But you don't never turn away.
Well, you can't. And Ted and I especially on the bus.
He'll call me. I go, dude, you got to see that. You got to watch what I'm watching. He
I
goes,
know.
I don't have that on my TV. That channel.
Well, my daughter, who's 13, who'll be 14 in September, she's now getting into things where she'll take some of my suggestions every now and then about what to watch.
Oh yeah.
Used to be anything adult, I'm not watching it.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of snuck up on her with it a little bit. Just kind of telling her about this character from a movie that she thought was hilarious because she thinks the old movies and their effects are just ridiculous. So she gets a charge out of it and she laughs at it.
Yeah.
But of course, for her, an old one could be 1995.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one way or the other, I finally showed her, and my son Willie, who's 25, he came over because he works in special effects. So that's his world, you know. And Willie and I sat there and showed Bella Robot Monster. Now, have you ever seen Robot Monster?
Yes, I think so.
It's amazing, and she was intrigued when I said, look, they didn't have any money to make this thing, and they shot it up at Bronson Canyon there. And I said, just so you know, the monster is a guy in a gorilla suit with a deep-sea diver helmet on. And that was what they decided to make the monster.
Yeah.
Well, she decided, okay, I got to see that.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of movie you'll see on the thing there.
Yeah.
So now, once I showed her Robot Monster, she's very open to seeing that because she thought it was the funniest thing she had ever seen in her lifetime.
Isn't it funny? It took something that old and that low budget and that obscure to bring him into that.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and
she totally gets it now.
Yeah, you never know what your entree is going to be to the world of yesteryear. Maybe it's the Boxmasters. Maybe it's the new record in stereo. As I put a bow on this thing.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah,
nice job, Richard.
Thank you very much. So anyway, so just to wrap up, you're going to finish up the tour, and then plans beyond that. I mean, you really win because you can continue to do the series and the acting and all that kind of stuff. But man, it is so cool that I'm sure you've thought this many times yourself that this is awesome that you can go out, you can do the band, your first love, and you've got a day job, I guess, that kind of affords you the ability and all that kind of stuff. But it's just so cool to see that this thing has had the life and the longevity that it has, the Boxmasters, and now really kind of a legacy to it, you know. So what'll be the plan for 2019, or is it too early to talk about that?
Well, we usually tour. We'll tour once or twice a year, and there's some talk of a spring tour, so maybe going out a little sooner, you know, and
releasing that other record called Spec.
Yeah, the other record called Spec. We'll release that, and
that's
we'll go
like
back
an homage to Richard Speck. Is that
no?
This is like Richard Speck the musical.
Yeah, not quite that creepy.
Okay,
but it's no. Actually, the title Spec came from there's a title song on it called Spec, which essentially is talking about how we're all just specks of dust in the universe, and you know. In the meantime, you got your little problems in the backyard that are maybe huge to you, and then you got the bigger global issues and stuff like that. It's really about that. It's a little bit more of a, I guess you'd say a more socio-political record in some ways, even though it's got a couple of personal songs on it. And that'll come out next year. We'll do another tour, and then probably go back in the studio again and start on another one, because we can't quit recording. We just it's in our blood. We can't stop it. And
we talked about maybe doing a live record. At this point, there's so many Boxmaster records that maybe it's time for the massive live record.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, with the gatefold, the Peter Frampton style, Boxmasters Come Alive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. 125 song live record.
We're gonna have to learn some more songs.
Very nice. All right.
4-hour set.
Well, we appreciate the time as always, and Frank will come to the show tonight. He wanted to get in here, but the problem was where I said this at the beginning of the show. I didn't explain it. Frank and I are both training for fights at this point, because I've been talked into doing a cage fight in December. But so this may be the last time you see me when I got all my faculties about me.
Those cages, right?
Oh, trust me, I do. That's why I'm so hesitant about it. But Frank's training later than I am, so he was coming straight over from that. But we'll see him at the show.
I've got to ask Frank. Well, you probably know this now that you're training for it. Do you guys wear a cup?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Okay. In fact, here let me tee you up for this. Get Frank tonight to tell you the story of when he was fighting in a UFC main event, and one of his testicles came outside the cup. So he's got one on the outside, one on the inside, and he's got a heavyweight Russian on top of him that's trying to beat him unconscious, and he suddenly realizes he's got one testicle off the reservation. And what happened?
Oh, did he hit him in it?
Well, you have to add. I'm going to tease for later on tonight.
That's painful.
Hopefully the Russian didn't know.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'll get him to tell you the story tonight. It's a good one, because it is very interesting, like the behind the scenes stuff of the practicalities you have to worry about. I will tell you this though, Billy, with the cup is like a boob job. You get what you pay for. You know what I mean? You can save a little money on the front end of the boob job, but you're going to realize it later on. So I always tell people the cup, do not skimp on the investment there. Invest in a good quality cup.
So don't get the
Don't go to Walmart and get a cup.
Yeah, exactly. Or remember in the old catalogs when you ordered stuff at Christmas, and it would have like a guitar amp, like a Silvertone or whatever.
Yep.
And it would have the cheapest one and the middle one and the more expensive one. It said good, better, best.
Yeah.
It's like, don't go for the good.
Good was never
Get
good.
the best.
No, that's right. That's right. All right, go to theboxmasters.com for more information. Follow the Boxmasters on Instagram. Whoever's running Instagram, nice job, by the way. Liking what I'm seeing there. There's fun videos from the road. I saw one from the truck stop today. You seem to be alluding to brewing up some meth in the back of the bus. You saw some Sudafed.
Oh,
like
people
that.
jump to conclusions.
Oh, is that what happened?
People just jump to conclusions. No, I was just saying that that cold medication is a good product.
All right, very nice, Billy, JD, Teddy, the Boxmasters, rocking the Red Rock Casino tonight. Always fun to have you guys. Look forward to doing it again next time.
Cool, man.
Thanks,
Good to see
Richard.
you, buddy.